But now I want your calls on this. Would Nigel Farage make a good Prime Minister? 0207 862 2222 is the number to give us a ring. Reform UK now tops the YouGov voting intentions poll. Take a look at this. This is the poll results. So you can see Reform UK at the top there with 25%. Labour just 1% less, 24. Conservatives 21. Liberal Democrats down at 14, and Greens down there at 9. The lead is pretty tight. Nigel Farage says that it is proof, though, that Britain wants reform. But what about you? Do you think that Nigel Farage would make a good Prime Minister? Would you like him to be in charge? Marvyn?
I think the question is slightly incorrect, which is always fun to reframe it. But if you actually look at the divide between right-wing and left-wing policies, there's an overriding majority for left-wing ideas. And this country is significantly more left-wing than it actually is right-wing. So the question really isn't about reform leading. It's actually about how can Labour and the left create a much more convincing proposition for this country where the majority can get behind an idea and make the necessary changes. The thing about Farage specifically is that he's great at particularly starting a conversation and particularly useless at delivering in any way, shape or form or maintaining power, gaining power, following through with the procedures to make the change last.
So just to be clear on what you're saying here, you actually think that the majority of the British public are behind sort of left-leaning ideologies, but they don't have a leader in place to make that a viable voting option, whereas you don't think they love the reform idea, but actually Nigel Farage connects to people in a way that some of the other leaders don't.
Yeah.
So you're quite positive about Nigel Farage then?
No, I'm saying that the idea of Nigel Farage is just about reframing the concept of different. And people want something that they can get behind, and he's very good at communicating. Will that necessarily turn into him being a great leader? Absolutely not. There's literally zero evidence of him leading and sustaining healthy leadership. Well, he was one of the leaders in the Brexit
campaign, and that worked well.
No, the message worked well, but what has happened since then hasn't worked well. And that's a common theme when we talk about right-wing populist ideas, or particularly him just in general, is starting conversations really well, but then actually not necessarily delivering anything that's sustainable, improves the outcomes of this country. So is he going to be a great leader? Absolutely not.
Do you think that's fair, Cristo?
I'm not a huge fan of Farage, the man.
Why?
Because I think that he's very good at sometimes throwing grenades, but I think where I agree with you is sometimes following through. I'm not sure he's always brilliant at that. Sometimes I think he doesn't temper some of his language, so you end up talking about the way he said something rather than actually the grain of the point that might have been in there. And I think that's a danger that we've got with a lot of politicians nowadays. I'm not sure I agree with your analysis, though, that we are an overwhelmingly kind of more
the
into...
stats literally just said that.
No, well, if we add up all the stats, if you consider the Liberal Democrats left wing, by the way, which I'm presuming you do, then I think that puts them at 48% with Labour and with the Greens, and I think that the Tories and Reform are on 47. So I mean, they're kind of neck and neck.
The top 5, so you could expand that out and then do more analysis.
Yeah, because I think UKIP's involved in that and as well, and whether we consider the Liberal Democrats left wing. But anyway, but I think that what Farage has done and what Reform has done is it is speaking to an aspiration that people have in this country and speaking about the issues that people care about in this country that the mainstream parties have either ignored or failed on. So, for instance, Reform were the only party that were really talking about trying to lower people's taxes, take the first £20,000 earned out of tax. I mean, that speaks to the aspiration of Great Britain that many of the other parties, certainly I don't think from what we've seen so far with Labour, that's being demonstrated. Certainly in the final years of the Conservatives, that wasn't being demonstrated. I think people are, like it or loathe it, worried about immigration and the infrastructure that we have that does not can't cater to everyone that is here. Again, the mainstream parties have failed on that.
I think the hard part is, would you actually trust Nigel Farage? Yes, the policies, yes, I get that. And starting the conversation, yes. But once he's now in, do you believe he's actually going to deliver the infrastructure, the operational and the governance of the ideas that he has, and actually is going to improve the outcomes? It's that part which I just believe is absolutely unlikely.
Do you think he would or he wouldn't?
I think that he has probably the same chance of doing so as any of the others. I mean, you
No,
could say the same about Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer has
absolutely
reneged on
nonsense.
as many policy. If we're going to talk about politicians who have reneged on promises they've made, Keir Starmer has U-turned on so many things on his manifesto. Boris Johnson, I wouldn't be surprised if he told me that his name was I don't know, Brenda from Wigan, because he lied so many times. So many of them lie.
Let's now speak to Belinda de Lucy, a spokesperson.
Not a Brenda.
Not Brenda, Belinda, a spokesperson for Reform UK. Belinda, would you like to see Nigel Farage as Prime Minister?
Absolutely. Millions of Brits don't believe the legacy parties put British interests first. Our borders, our taxes, our safety seem to be sacrificed for applause on the international global stage. And if Nigel Farage has proved anything in over 30 years, that he's prepared, he has the courage to be disliked by that liberal global stage in order to put British interests first. And the thing that differentiates him from the other leaders is he speaks from the heart. He doesn't need scripts or notes, to speak on stage or on television, because everything is authentic and genuine from the heart. And in the political world, that is as rare as hen's teeth. Now, people are fed up with spin and lies and cover-ups and manifestos that mean nothing. And Nigel really has the qualities of a leader to navigate the UK through the storm of declinism, like Maverick from Top Gun. We don't need these soulless, penfold, technocratic ghouls anymore.
Belinda, that might be true. He may speak from the heart, and that's maybe why he has connected so much with large swathes of the British population. But Marvyn particularly criticises him in terms of action, not on what he says. He's a great auditor, he connects, but when it comes to actually putting these things in practice, there is perhaps a little bit more difficult for Nigel Farage. And I'm just going to put to you, because immigration is obviously a massive, massive issue, and one of the things that makes Reform UK such a popular party for many people. Well, what Nigel Farage, your party, has said about the small boats crossings is we're going to take illegal immigrants, we're going to put them back in a boat, we're going to send them to France. What they're crucially missing in that whole manifesto peace policy is how you're going to persuade France to take them. I mean, that's quite a crucial part of that policy, is it not?
Well, one of the wonderful things about Trump's victory is he showed in the first 4 days how to get things done, especially with illegal migrants, I believe, from Colombia. When the Colombian president refused to take them back, Trump just said, well, we'll put your tariffs up. Our leadership just is full of invertebrates at the moment who won't put this country first. So we need to be strong, and we need to have the courage to say what is in the best interest of our people, our safety, and not just the millions that are being squandered and siphoned out of the homes of British families to be spent on these men so-called fleeing from the safety of France. We need to just be tough and stand up. And I believe Reform is the party that will say, this is what's happening. This is what we're going to do for the best interests of our country. And France are just going to have to suck it up. I mean, already look at
really
Europe.
Interesting is
Europe has a right-wing movement that is taking over because the EU and liberalism has failed the people of their country when it comes to illegal migration and the horrific acts of violence that some have been able to act on in Europe. And that's why the EU is suffering at the moment. And because there aren't enough strong leaders who will say, no, we are going to do this. And if you don't take back those people, then we are going to have a discussion of what the consequences are.
Higher tariffs on Europe. I'm going to go to the calls. Alan from Kent, what do you think about Nigel Farage being Prime Minister? Have you got high hopes for that?
No, not really. It's a complete disaster. He should be in a pantomime. He should go back to his roots in Germany with his family who've got European passports.
What makes you say he should be in pantomime, that he's a disaster?
Because he's a joke. He's not for the people, he's for himself.
Well, hold on. You say that he's a joke, but he spearheaded the Brexit campaign and we as a nation voted to leave. So he is an effective communicator to some extent.
Well, no, people will fall by him. You take, for instance, I can go for 90 days now. I've got a place in Bulgaria. I can go for 90 days, and that's it. My dog, who's got a Bulgarian passport, can travel around all the time. And that was because of Brexit. She used to have a European one from Southern Ireland, and I took her to the tunnel to travel to Bulgaria, and because an English vet had signed it, they said it was invalid.
Alan, I do hear your
pay.
frustration with that, and actually we had a caller yesterday on a completely different topic talking about, was it yesterday or last week, who had a property in Spain and is suffering the same sort of consequences to that. But some people might say that is just collateral damage of Brexit. But I understand your frustrations personally. Alan, thank you very much for your call. Paul from Bristol, do you think Nigel Farage would be a good Prime Minister?
Good afternoon, Tom, and good afternoon, panel. I think he's like he's like a one-off. He's like someone that listens to people. He understands their point of view, whereas Labour and the Conservatives are not doing that at this moment in time.
Okay, well, he definitely connects with a lot of people, but in terms of actually being able to follow through on his policies, do you trust that? I mean, if we look at the Brexit campaign, we had the breaking point poster, we had the 350 million for the NHS. There was a few things that haven't really turned out to maybe be the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
So what I'm saying is he may connect, he may say all the things that British people or some British people want to hear, but actually when it comes to sorting out these really massive issues, do you trust Nigel Farage to be able to do that?
Well, if I should be honest, I listened to one of his speeches, and to be honest, that was one of the best speeches I've ever heard in political time.
Yep. Yeah, Paul, I'm asking you about practicalities. I'm asking you about when it gets down to the doing on the day-to-day job in number 10. Is he going to be able to do it? Not just talk the game, because you've said he can talk a good game.
I think he's someone who can stand and deliver. I think that's what it needs to be about: stand and deliver.
Okay.
And don't make endless promises.
All right. Okay. Paul, thank you for your call. James from Caerphilly, what's your thoughts?
Wouldn't trust him to put the bin out.
Okay. Well, I mean, why not, James?
He is fantastic at homing in on people's fears and then giving such an oration that people lurch toward voting for him. But like you just said a moment ago, Storm, he doesn't then go into the mechanics of how he will fix a problem. He waits, just like Trump, for the next fear factor to strike the people, and then he will home in on that fear factor.
As Belinda points out, in Trump's very short time in his second term in his presidency, it's been fairly effective.
Well, yes, I have to appreciate that, but it's got to be effective all of the time.
Okay.
He doesn't go into the mechanics of how he's going to solve any problem long term. It's always lurching onto the fear factor that our people suffer from because of the issues we're going through.
Okay, I just want to go to Belinda. What's your reaction to that?
I think people are genuinely frightened. I think they feel the legacy parties, Labour and the Tories, have really damaged this country, not just trust, but the ballot box, and democracy. People have voted again and again and again to reduce immigration, and they've taken that vote and they've just trashed it. And that in itself is an attack on our country and the democratic agency of the people. And to say that Nigel hasn't achieved anything and he's just a man that talks the talk, he has achieved the most phenomenal political success outside of the arena. You know, the Brexit Party, Reform Party, this time last year, Reform had no MPs. The membership was in the tens of thousands. We now have 5 MPs, 190,000 members. People are so frightened,
but
tired, and they're struggling just to make ends meet.
Belinda, I get reform. I get why people are attracted to reform. I made the point before. But isn't the fear with Farage, where he had the best opportunity when the Brexit vote took place to actually try and then be involved into what Brexit would actually be and fulfill some of the promises he made about Brexit, he did a runner. He scarpered. Yeah. And he tried to be, and then he had to literally be dragged back kicking and screaming to stand for an MP in the last election. And isn't that the big fear that Farage needs to get over with people, that he wouldn't do the same again?
At the Brexit Party, Nigel, we didn't win the last election. That was the Conservative Party that took the gift of Brexit and absolutely squandered it. We had absolutely no control over that, standing on the sidelines. And in fact, proof of that he puts the country first was we stood down those MPs in the 2019 election to save this country from a Corbyn government. That in itself is an act of great courage. He got a lot of abuse for that, but he did it for the right reasons. It was the Conservative Party. You can't blame Nigel and the Brexit Party, who didn't get any MPs in the in the 2019 election, for not having control over Brexit. That's nonsense.
All right, Belinda, thank you very much for your time there and joining us on that debate. Thank you for all your calls as well and your